Welcome back to iHeartRadio. So bad it's good. Listen, today I'm moving a little slow because we had, of course, the third and final part of the reunion of Vanderpump Rules, and I watched it at SUR, and that was an experience in itself. It really feels like it was ground zero, apocalypse, and now we potentially are in a post-Scandival environment. This has been going on, as our guest says, I think for like 98 days now or something. Our long-suffering national nightmare is almost over. But our guest today, I'm so thrilled to have. Now, we talked with Stephanie McNeil earlier this week, who also writes for Glamour magazine. And Glamour magazine happened to be working on a profile of Ariana Madix, who is at the center of this storm. We've been talking about her now for the past 3 months. But this article, I think, is so worth your time because it's a profile that takes us even past the Scandival, and we actually get to start learning more about Ariana and not even making a case, but showing who she is, how she's weathered this, but how much more she is than just Scandival. So I am so delighted to have today the author of this article. Her name is Perrie Samotin, and she is Glamour's digital director. And she had a podcast herself for Glamour called What I Wore When, which I was listening to a couple episodes this morning. It's excellent. All those past episodes are there. She's done it with Stassi. She did it with Dorit. Just amazing. But I can't wait to talk to her about the creation of this article, get her own personal feelings on Scandival. So Perrie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled.
How are you doing? I mean, how are you? I mean, only you're a Vanderpump Rules fan. You've been watching this, but you also now have this kind of, you were able to talk to Ariana and create this amazing profile. Did that change your perception of Scandival after talking to her, or were you always pretty resolute in how you felt about Scandival?
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, we're very happy with the profile. It came together very, very quickly. Usually when Glamour does a cover, we have about 6 to 8 weeks to turn around the actual story from the shoot. And this, we had about 2 days. I had 2 days to write the story. So we really hustled on it because we did want to, capitalize on the moment. We knew we wanted to publish it right after part 3. So, it came out 8 a.m. today. So it was less than 12 hours after the reunion. So we kind of checked all the boxes there. And for me, yeah, talking to her, it did change my perspective a lot. I always thought, I've been watching that show since season 1. It's my favorite it's my favorite in the Bravo canon. And I've always considered Ariana to be sort of level-headed and a little bit cooler than everyone else, seemingly not as desperate. Just there was something about her, hence the name. But really, there was.
Yeah.
And what changed for me was talking to her. I was pleasantly surprised that she lived up to that. She was mature and cool and calm and really candid and willing to answer anything. A lot of times when we'll interview sort of movie stars and so-called A-listers, they reserve the right often to say, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that, or that's all I'm going to say about that. She was like, I said, is anything off the table? She was like, no.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I had a question of like, you do this for a living. You deal with a lot of bigger personalities and people that have made a mark, but it is got to be refreshing when somebody is unguarded because it makes your job that much easier. And you can actually make a way more interesting article based on that.
Yeah, it's honestly the dream. If it were up to me, that would be, these types of personalities would be the type of people I interview much more frequently because they are completely willing to play ball. They want their stories told. They're not necessarily promoting anything but themselves, which I think is really interesting. A lot of celebrities that I've interviewed in the past are promoting projects, big blockbusters, big television shows. And so they have to stay on brand for their network, their agent, their this, their that. When you're in reality TV, you just really have to stay true to yourself or whoever you're showcasing. So that was really great. And yeah, there was no language, when we were going back and forth with her team, there was nothing where they said, no, don't touch on this. So everything.
God. I mean, even I do interviews with Bravo celebrities and they'll be like all of these things I can't touch. So when you have somebody unguarded, it's just so much better. But you have this great line in the article, public humiliation is the lifeblood of reality television. And I thought that was such a great, succinct line and a summation of what we've just watched. But at the
Mm.
same time, it's what exploded this whole thing, is that these sacrifices, this pain we watch her go through is really what has driven the Vanderpump economy, that everybody is selling shirts and everybody, we're all making money off of somebody's personal pain, but that has been reality television since day one. Have you always felt that?
100%. I'm dating myself here, but I was very starting college when Survivor first came out, which arguably is the first real reality show. I mean, I guess you could say real
How
world.
real world? Come on.
Yeah. But I mean, actually on, network television, not cable. And I remember I was an intern at the time at CBS News. And I mean, everybody every week would just flip out about, not about the challenges, but about the embarrassing things that people are doing, because we'd never really seen that before. And so ever since then, I've really been fascinated in reality as a genre, and sort of I have admiration for reality talent and the way they put it out there. And when they do have public humiliation, they just they get right back on the horse and they'll film another season. And I actually think it's very admirable. So yes, I certainly have always felt that way. And I don't just watch Bravo. I watch a ton of reality TV.
Yeah.
It's always rooted in some sort of humiliation.
I feel like there's going to be a medical experiment done like 20 years from now studying these reality television stars,
Yes.
because what they're used to now, even off camera, is like, who is used to this? I keep trying to tell the audience is like, these are not, a lot of these people aren't great people, and they're used to doing these things, and they've all done something. They've all done really bad things to each other. So everybody on that stage last night has done wild things, but it is interesting for somebody in their 40s, somebody in there, to still be doing something egregiously so bad that even as a dude, because Glamour is, primarily, a magazine focusing for women, and you watch this internalized misogyny, not only with the women, but what we let the men get away with. Even last night, I was like, Raquel, Rachel, she's not even, it's deeply unsatisfying because she can't really, there's nothing there, but we still aren't getting to the root of the matter. Like, let's dig into Sandoval a little bit more. And it was wild that we were throwing this all on somebody that it was like, this isn't satisfying to watch because she can't really effectively communicate.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. In my head, I was like, babe, are you okay? Were you medicated? Were you in shock? I honestly, that with her, I honestly think, I do think reality personalities put on, they do lean in. They don't play a character, but they definitely lean into a character. I don't know about her. Something was going on there that I almost felt alarmed. I don't feel sorry for her, but I feel alarmed. Her mental state is to be correct.
It was really, I was doing that SIR party, and we all watched it, and I was thinking at the end there'd be some kind of celebration, some kind of like, woo, we did it. And it was not that. It was sad. And I wasn't like I said, I wasn't completely sympathetic with Rachel at all. But at the same time, I was like, wow, we didn't really get any answers. And that's why your profile piece is so refreshing to read. And that's why I suggest you guys do this after even the second or third time you watch this reunion, because it actually starts, asking questions about Ariana that I want to know. Fill in those blank spots. What were some of those blank spots for you with Ariana? And just to point out, earlier, she said this was really pieced together so quickly. She did the first interview, you guys, after the first part finale aired, right?
Okay, so it was the day after the second. So I flew to LA. We did the interview on Thursday, so a week ago today, and then flew home Friday and started writing. So I didn't really.
And you spoke to her last night too, just for some clarification?
Yeah, we did. I ended up not using it in the piece. So when I didn't put this in the profile, but when I had spoke to her, I asked her, they keep Bravo keeps pushing this big bombshell at the end of season 3. So what it is. And she said, I do. And she said, Bravo, she indicated that Bravo, which I get, sort of packages it up like a bombshell. But they don't tell her this is the bombshell. But she asked the producers, do I know about the bombshell? And they said, yeah, you do. So, and she said to me, she said it's terrible, but it's not like a huge thing. So, and it ended up being that the affair was going on a little bit longer, which people, I think, speculated. Every time I looked at like a Reddit thread or an Instagram, people were speculating that. So it wasn't anything enormous.
We were speculating that she shot JFK. We were like, Raquel is
Truly.
responsible. Raquel is responsible for every, like, I mean, everybody went crazy with this. And so it is interesting. I've studied this the last 3 months of like, this horrible thing happened. And it's really just alarming and so fascinating from a reality television perspective. You're just sucked into. But we as an audience over the last 3 years, especially, we need more. We need to make more of it. We need to make these insane things that actually don't exist and actually then kind of cloud what is the reality of their reality.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, so I spoke to her last night after, but what she said, she just sort of reiterated very succinctly what the whole scandal is in general. She said diabolical, ridiculous. So I felt like that was already communicated in the profile. So I didn't feel the need to put her thoughts in from last night because the bombshell wasn't that shocking. But back to your earlier question, for me, the gaps that I wanted to fill in, I'm very interested in reality personalities outside of their immediacy, so outside of their shows and outside of their social media personality and or personas. And I was very curious. Okay, you have this girl on Vanderpump Rules who never seemed to really stir up that much drama. She always seemed to be a little bit above it. And suddenly she's the most famous reality star in the world with all of this drama. So not only was I curious, how do you get from here to there, but also how did you get into reality? Like, that is another thing that I don't think people really dig into with reality stars, unlike celebrities where we know their backstory and where they're from. Like, these people seem to just materialize on our TV and we know very little. Even when you're a fan, even if you follow them and follow them and follow them, we know very little about their lives pre whatever network or television show they're on. And I was very curious about Ariana's life. I knew just from watching the show that she was from Florida. I had no idea where. I vaguely had a sense of how old she was, but I didn't really know anything. So I said, we really want to humanize you. We want to talk about Scandival and all that, but we want it to be a profile that would equal, any other star that we've done recently. And she was totally on board, and she talked really candidly about her life growing up and her family and her parents, and how they didn't really grow up with a lot, but they gave her a lot. And sort of her dad wasn't always coming home at night, and a lot of the things that she was dealing with in her life seemed to have shaped who she was. And then she took that and used it on the show. But that was, for me, was the gap that I wanted to fill in, and she definitely shined quite a light on it. So I was so happy that she was willing to do that.
I mean, you've done this for so long. Do you let yourself during an interview process, do you allow yourself to have thoughts of, well, this is going well, I really like this person? Are you steely when like, how do you, what is that process of interviewing somebody in the storm of all of this, knowing that you have to put together an article that is going to be interesting? Like, do you, like, within the first 5 minutes go, okay, this is going to be easy and this is going to be good?
I never think it's going to be easy because you never know what you're going to get. I mean, for example, there was a celebrity, it wasn't a cover story, but I interviewed a celebrity, like an iconic celebrity who's in her 70s, who I was so excited to talk to. And she was kind of over it. Like, she wasn't really giving much. And I could tell she wasn't really into doing press. And I thought it was going to be easy because she's funny and crass and cool. And so I don't really like to let myself think. And she was lovely, but it wasn't easy. I was asking questions and I would get very short answers. So you never really know if it's going to be easy. I'm not steely at all. I actually find, I think because I do think I have good interviewing skills. And I think that's because I'm able to be very approachable and friendly without pandering. Like, I'm not just saying this, I don't get starstruck. Like, there's nobody that I'm fans of people, but there's no one that I would be fawning or shocked.
Yeah.
So I think I go in hoping for the best. I give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but no, I'm not steely. I try to be chatty, and even if we go over time, like, I'd rather have a little bit of extra conversation there and maybe be short on some questions, because I think developing a rapport is really important. And in this case, it definitely felt like we were, in LA at like sitting on the patio of a restaurant. And I just felt like two gals, having lunch. And
Yeah, I geek out with how the sausage is made. So like I really think what this is an art what you do, but I just want to let the audience know I was texting with Ariana before this, and this is a direct quote from Ariana in regards to Perrie. She is awesome. She is super sweet. You are going to have the best time talking with her. So yeah, I thought that was very nice that she said that. And then she also said, "Hey, I was thinking about you. This reminded me of you, Ryan." And it was the quote, "Maybe the real scandal was the friends we made along the way." And I thought that was very funny as well.
nice.
You filling in those gaps, I wanted to point out a couple of things that I found really interesting that you got her to talk about it, just in terms of, she's profiting over she's made almost $1 million in terms of brand deals. And you had a really great line about, this money actually going into your checking account. But she says, regarding her family, we have no generational wealth in our family. I want to make enough money to be able to take care of my mom and my brother and any other family members who may or may not need it. I never want to worry about it ever, ever, ever. So I will work as much as possible to not have to. I thought that was such a great quote.
So powerful. And so I went into it. The first order of business on my agenda, a lot of my notes centered around her perspective on money. First of all, I always find that interesting when I'm interviewing celebrities, whether it's in print or on, my former podcast. I'll always ask about, to get a little bit real about money. So I'll say, when you started realizing, hey, I'm good at what I do, what's something that you bought, or how do you view money? Is it important to you? I think it's important to talk about that, and also kind of juicy. And I love getting people just to be real about it. Like on my podcast, so many people admitted that they're just like, I don't know, I love shopping. And I think that's so powerful because for women, it's always like you can love fashion, but you shouldn't say you love shopping and being indulgent. And it's just really nice to hear that. But with Ariana, I know that there were so many articles tallying up her sponsorships and her SponCon and sort of estimating or speculating about how much money she was raking in. So I wanted to ask her, for the record, she didn't tell me that 1 million. That was an estimation that I found elsewhere. So I linked to that. So I don't exactly know, but that's a pretty good estimation, because if you think about all these corporate companies she's working with, I mean, she's not doing this for free, nor should she. I mean, they're pretty big companies. So I was very happy that she was candid about that. And she was
what a great way to be like, listen, if I have this opportunity, it's not even for me, it's for everybody. Like I want to be able to take care of people if they need it. Like that was, to me, what, like, man, that, people are like starting to like get this, like, well, she's getting too much. And I'm like, these people only have opportunity at a certain point. And my God, thank God she's capitalizing off this in a way. And it isn't just, I want to go shopping. She's like, I want to not worry about money ever again.
100%. Yeah. I mean, she wasn't someone, I asked her, it didn't make it into the piece, but I asked about shopping and about sort of what were some things you splurged on when you actually started making money from the show before the breakup. She was like, not much. She said she bought herself a bag, like a nice bag when she first started, and she still uses it. And she said she doesn't really go nuts for stuff like that. She didn't strike me as someone that was materialistic at all. And I really felt that. Like, she just didn't. She's like, yeah, I bought a designer bag. I use it. It's pretty beat up. I love it. But she just didn't. And so she really seemed, and I think on the show at some point, or she had spoken seasons ago about financial independence being something that's very important to her. And she really stood her ground on that point. She drove it home, and she said, why wouldn't I? There were some articles that I saw that rounded up approximately how much money she was making, and they were a little snide. And she was like,
yes,
like a little, like, it was like feminism veiled in, like, it was like, you go girl, boss, slay, but also kind of like, it's acting like the publications didn't know any of the brands. And it's a lot of the things I read were snide. And she was like, that's okay. Like, I'm making money. And I mean, it's so smart.
I've been really impressed too, even in these brand deals. She's found ways to make them funny or a cut above what I normally see with influencer, like on, branding commercials. Like she had one for Duracell yesterday that I thought was hysterical because of Tom's pins and batteries, dude. You got to stock that stuff. I love that they were able to then flip that around. And I was at a Raising Cane's event with her a couple weeks ago, and I was still just so impressed within the minute. She shows up with a smile. She's genuinely happy to be there. She genuinely likes to meet these people.
Yeah.
And I can't even get myself out of bed half the time. Like she
Right.
is. And it doesn't ever read fake or phony. And that's what I was appreciating. And I'm curious to see where it goes from here. You mentioned on this interview that, you're not starstruck or anything like that, but even the staff, they were bringing over a round of free drinks. They brought over dessert. Did you notice other people staring at her?
No, so we actually went when I pitched this cover and her team accepted. I had said, my boss was like, don't settle for like 45 minutes, like try to get her for a long period of time so you can really spend time with her, maybe an activity. So I was like, I don't know, does she want to go like on a hike? Does she want to go to a museum? Does she want to, get drunk? Like whatever she wants to do. I didn't say that, but I said drink.
I would have said that. Yeah.
I mean, I was indicating.
Yeah.
Like whatever, I felt whatever would bring out. And they actually said that paparazzi has been problem with her. And so hiking, because there was apparently reportedly on our shoot for her, it was like in a field, but there were paparazzi there. And so a lot of those things.
Paparazzi showed up to a field?
I wasn't there. The shoot was a week before I met her. It was like a field. If you look on Glamour, you'll see the story. And it's like a field. It was near her home, I believe, but it was fairly like secluded. Yeah, my team who were there told me there was paparazzi. So they were like, if it's okay with you, we're going to do it at a private club, like a sort of like a Soho House vibe. It wasn't Soho House, but like that vibe.
Yeah.
They said there's a pool, there's a restaurant, so you guys can just hang there. So I said, oh, that's perfect. And because it'll be quiet. So nobody really, we met at 1:00. We had lunch, we had a couple drinks. It wasn't crowded. So nobody was really noticing patron wise, I don't think. But yeah, the wait staff, it was interesting. Our waitress, I don't know. She didn't really seem like somebody that would watch Vanderpump Rules. I just got that vibe, and she kept checking up on us. And I assumed that she was just a really, really over-solicited waitress. But I think somebody there must have told her. I don't know, because then they brought dessert. They were like, oh, we each had 2 drinks. And they were like, oh, that one of the rounds is on us. And I was like, okay.
All of a sudden you're into moi. There's a blind. I
was surprised. I kind of expected that. Yeah.
So the other thing you guys talk about, and I don't want to be too crude, but I think this is an open conversation in terms of the show itself, was the Sandoval in terms of one of the reasons that he went to Rachel was their sexual relationship.
Yeah.
And I thought she made a very powerful statement in this, is that I am not, I'm there for intimacy. I'm not somebody's fleshlight, which I thought was such a great pull quote. Did did that resonate for you, how she was speaking about that?
100%. I mean, first of all, it was nice to hear her reiterate that, because she has said that season after season, even when they seemingly were happy and things were fairly copacetic. She had said in many episodes past that, intimacy outside of sex is important to her, spending time together, laughing, doing things.
Crazy, right? That's disgusting that she wants it. What kind of woman is this? She's a monster.
What weird, yeah, like what are you into? Wanting to like watch a show with your man? Oh,
yeah, my God. Yeah, gross.
And it sounded to me, I mean, she kind of said, she said the phrase come home once or twice, but it kind of indicated that like he still, he loved going out. And she said, I love going out too. She said, I love to celebrate birthdays, or we like to go party with our friends. She said, but I'm at a point in my life, reality show or not, where no, if there's nothing to celebrate or there's nothing to shoot, I might not go out and stay out really late on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. That's just not where I am. And she said he was. So right away, you kind of got a little bit of a divide there. Like she wasn't getting enough time with him. And it's hard, like as women, like you can't, if you have a long-term partner, you can't just turn it on. Like you need that intimacy. So I think what she said spoke volumes. And I think it spoke for a lot of women and probably men too, just people, good people, I think. I mean, I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised with how candid she was. Yeah, she was like, I mean,
Oh,
saying I'm not your fleshlight, like, I was like, that's a really great, like, way to put it, which is, for those that don't know, that's a male sex toy. So
well,
she
I
was
mean,
sort of, yeah. I
covering this season, that was the thing that I kept even asking myself as a dude was I was like, wait a sec. So Tom's argument is that women should be there to stock things and women should be there for our use to have sex with. And if they don't, they leave themselves open to be cheated on, period.
mean, it's
And we
it's
should
literally
empathize with Tom.
the oldest for me. That, I mean, yes, every, his way of saying it was a little different than the next guy or the guy before him. His thing was like batteries and stocking, but it's true. It is so true. And I mean, that is familiar territory. That is well trodden territory. I feel like it's just.
Yeah, you made that point of like this is not the first time. This is not going to be the last time. This is and but for a guy like like it is interesting to hear these things and then to start recognizing that all women, you're like, man, this isn't new. What are you like? If it's surprising to you, it's not surprising to us. And I thought that was extremely like a great point to reiterate of like, all the women out there. This is a well traveled road
Sure
in
is.
terms of
And I think for me, I mean, this is why I think for a lot of women, it really hit home because I have had, family members and friends and in my own life, people that have been unfaithful to their partners. And it's always that same story of like, when you're caught, it's like, well, you didn't give me your time. And you talked down to me. And then, like Ariana said in the finale, when she said, and by the way, that great scene in the opener of the finale when her and Tom were actually talking it out, she said that was hours and it got distilled into like 4 minutes on
Oh
the
yeah,
show.
for the finale, they had been talking
Yes,
for out. God, I mean, first off, I need a Peacock version of your interview. I need the fully unedited version of you and Ariana's. I mean, I want this filmed
I
for
know.
Peacock, but I mean, I do wonder that 2 hour conversation that they filmed. I would love to see. Like, I don't need fancy edits. I don't need. I mean,
No,
I
I
know they're
agree.
making a show, but that would have been so traumatic because we've all been in those relationship conversations that last for hours and go nowhere and there's ups and downs and ups and
Mhm.
downs. I mean, we've all been there and that's why you're like, oh wow, this is so real.
And she said in that conversation, this is what hit home for me because this is, you know, just the thing is when she was like, oh, like you got a little bit of money and like a little bit of
You got your
not
little band and you
your
got your
little
little,
little
yeah.
fame, right? And like you have this girl like ready to gas you up and like come. She didn't say verbatim, but like commiserate with you about how I don't give you this and that. Like it's such a cliche because it's. I mean, I've seen it and I felt it and I've experienced it and time and again. That's just a very classic male pattern. And I do think initially a lot of people are like, why is this a story? Even the comments on Glamour's page, a lot of people are applauding us for covering her, but a lot of people are like, why is this news? Why is this a story? Well,
Please tell me Liev Schreiber now reads Glamour and he's like,
I
this
mean,
is not what I tune into Glamour for. This is not why I read Glamour.
that was embarrassing. I was like, take a seat, like, stop it. Like,
Several seats, yeah.
take several seats because anything I mean, we live in a world where the zeitgeist is the thing. Like, the New York Times is not above trying to get in on the cultural conversation if it's outside of politics or something that we consider highbrow. Of course, the New York Times would want to chat with Ariana or chat with Lisa or some, like, I don't blame them. And for him to say that, but also, I lost my train of thought because I was so angry about Leah.
No, I mean, it was just like comments in the Glamour thing of people going, is this news? Is
Yes,
this news?
and I think by and large, outside of those few, the reason why people care is because we've all either had this happen to us or every friend or family member who has had infidelity in their lives. It always goes that way. It's always like, well, I kind of got blamed, and the other woman or partner was there to like, oh, like prod and gas him up, and then the
Yeah.
woman is left feeling like really shitty. And I think it was just so recognizable on so many levels.
You got this great piece of information in this article, you guys. Once again, I'm going to put the link in the show notes, but I had already heard this and I wasn't able to speak about this on the show because it was private information, but she talked about going through, the apps and finding how he was hiding information. There was a calculator app that was a vault kind of, and she was able to go in basically. I know her and her friend Logan,
Mhm.
they were able to find screenshots, I believe, of text conversations. And she opened up to you about this. And I thought, and you also had this great comment in there of going, a woman would never be this dumb.
I mean, she said too, you know, apart from just keeping these things on your phone, he was hiding things in apps that were synced to their shared laptop. That is when I was like, come on, at least I'm not condoning your behavior, but at least do the work in covering your
Do
tracks.
the work.
You
Come on, he found a secret app. That's kind of doing the work. But it is wild to think about these. And I remember, somebody had when telling me about these conversations also, that it didn't even really seem like Tom. It showed how possessive he was of Rachel, and how, like really this guy was on one about this. But the fact that he was saving these screenshots, but also for a partner then to find all of these things after the fact. And that's what I think the reunion has been powerful. And even after the reunion stopped filming, she has found more and more things out. So it's this evolving thing of, you keep finding out how shitty this dude was over this last year.
and and I don't think I used it in the piece, but when I was going through the transcript, which was like 97 pages, it was so long, but every word was so
Will this be a book, Perrie? We need a book.
Really,
we need the transcripts.
It should be like a novella. She said that behavior, she kept calling it weird, and I was like, that's exactly like weird. It's just weird, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
This guy, I mean, I think viewers, fans of the show, I don't think anyone ever thought he was like an angel, but I don't think he wasn't giving like evil vibes the way he is now. And I don't know, something
shifted.
I mean, I think that's also why there's fan theories circulating that this whole thing is fake and he's playing a role. He's playing a
she talked about this as well, in terms of people thinking her life is fake.
There were loads of comments on Reddit. I mean, mostly Reddit was Team Ariana, no one, but there was quite a few subreddits where they were like, obviously this is fake. Bravo is struggling, like as a network, they're competing with streaming. They had a recast like doing all this, and which, okay. And Ariana said, maybe I could see that, like how people think that, but like, these are people's lives. Like, why would not even her, because she's come out on top. Why would Tom and Rachel agree to this? Like,
if he is a narcissist, if he is any of these things, usually that kind of behavior doesn't encourage, like, yeah, make me look like a complete effing idiot for the sake of, like, he's not like that martyr throwing himself on the pyre just to get everybody like better brand deals.
No, exactly. And to get Bravo ad dollars, because now everybody wants to advertise during the show. Like, that is not something in my mind that Tom Sandoval or Raquel would sign up for. I don't think that's in there. That's something they would care about. And why should they? They're not like ad salespeople for the network. Like, why would they care about this?
I love it. It's just so funny because I was like, okay, you guys, you think this is all fake, but then if it's all fake, why are you still watching? Why are you like, I watch it because there is this shred of like reality. And especially with Sandoval, what I think we're so drawn to is that it's more than a shred. It's the whole, like, this is real. Like, when something's real. When I watch Selling Sunset, I know what I'm signing up for. I know exactly what it is. I know, but it's so funny to me sometimes, that fake skewed reality. But when I watch this, it gives you goosebumps because it is so real. And I think that's what's going to be interesting going into season 11, which you guys spoke about a little bit as well. As a fan, even talking to her, where would you want to see season 11 go in your head?
I will say, I wasn't sure. I had heard rumors. So I thought that the big reveal I thought this for a bit, that the big reveal last night on part 3 of the reunion was going to be, and I saw some people speculating, was that the show was moving to Las Vegas because Lisa has all these properties in Vegas. So I kind of thought, I didn't really want it to go there, but I was like, that makes sense. Lisa needs to be there to tend to her properties. She'll have new, staff, and maybe like the OGs will go to train. That's what I thought. I thought maybe it would focus on Lisa's new young staff at her Vegas properties, and then Ariana, like the waitresses and bartenders and waiters, would go to train them, which is a way to like get them all in one. Yeah. That is what I thought. And I'm like,
and you had Oliver. They set up Oliver as a character this season who works at, and even they mentioned him last night in I was like, why are we keep talking about Oliver unless you're going to make him a piece of something? It didn't make sense to me.
Right. So that's kind of what I thought. And then it doesn't seem that. So I don't know. I guess this season will focus a little bit on it's starting to film, I think she said this summer, and she's still living there because they're trying to sell the house. So I guess that's gonna be part of the
It's gonna be like
drama.
a War of the Roses, kind of like,
Maybe. Right.
like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but once again, you're signing up for personal pain. You're
Oh yeah.
signing up for, and I was talking to some of the producers last night, and I'm so fascinated with their job because you're like, it's a delicate balance of also trying to keep Rachel and Tom into the fold. So you can't completely badmouth them as production. You're like, well, they have a story to tell. I was thinking about this with you, though, in your work. Would you ever want to or try to go for a profile of Rachel? Would Glamour magazine ever want to go for that story?
Yes, I would. I would. I
What
think
would your angle be? What would you want to hear? Or what would
I
you want to
mean,
find out?
well, I guess we would have to in order to green light it, we would have to have sort of verbal confirmation from her representation, if she has any, that she would be willing to be pretty unfiltered. We would never feature, I mean, somebody who is cast in a light of such a bad sort of woman, like not having no sort of feminist tendencies whatsoever. And Glamour is not that. We try to champion all women. So I think in order for us to feature her, it wouldn't just be for traffic because she's not really a great woman, in my opinion. So it would have to be, she would have to really want to come clean, set records straight, tell her side of the story. I mean, I think if she was honest, but I don't think, I think with Ariana, the tone of the piece, I think, it was treated like any other profile, but the tone was fairly sympathetic. And I don't think it was a puff piece. I don't think it was fawning. I asked her a couple of tough questions, and I don't think any of it was like, oh my God, we love you. Like, but it was by and large, when you read it, like you can tell that we're on your side. I don't think if I ever did that with Rachel, or if one of my colleagues ever did that, I would encourage them to be much more skeptical and really ask some hard questions. And when writing it, not be mean, not be snarky, because that's just not the way to be a journalist. But I would very clearly make it a little bit more balanced and not
What?
as pro.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's what the audience wants, and I think when you see a reunion, it was part of the unsatisfying aspect of part three. Do you do that when you watch a reunion? You're like, Andy, I would have asked this, or Andy, come on, like this is right there, Andy, don't move on.
A little bit. I honestly didn't really feel that with the reunion. I think Andy does an outstanding job with those, and I think the cast members usually on speak sort of get it done themselves with all the talking. There were a few questions. I was very excited to see Ariana on Watch What Happens Live. And on that show, there were a few questions I was shocked that Andy didn't ask. And also earlier in the winter, right after it broke, he had Lisa Vanderpump on, and my boss, the EIC of Glamour, was actually the bartender that night. And we were like, "Oh, this is going to be huge," and it like wasn't. He wasn't
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
it was
best.
anticlimactic. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, she was
Jack
like,
and Brittany the next week were way more exciting and actually got a bit more than Lisa. Lisa was like, these crazy kids.
right.
It was unsatisfying.
I guess to give Andy, I mean, a little to throw him a bone. Maybe the fact that that interview wasn't so amazing is all the more proof that this actually was real, because that was very early when he had Lisa, and I think even no one really knew what was going on. So I
It
think
was the week it broke, and
he was
Katie
just
was
like,
supposed
tell
to
me
be the
what you
guest.
know. Right.
And then they had to like say, you can't go because you have to film now. And this is
Right.
Katie didn't even realize what had happened yet. So she was like, oh, does it involve me? She didn't even know.
Yeah.
What was the toughest question you were talking about? You did have a couple of tough questions for Ariana. What in your opinion was the toughest that you were like, I want to ask this, and this is probably the most delicate thing I'm going to ask?
Well, I think absolutely asking about, the intimacy stuff, because even though she spoke about it on the show, like here I am being like, tell me more about that. And so I was a little like, how can I frame this in a way that feels I wanted to make it feel like a safe space and not me prying for details on her sex life, because that's not what I was, going after at
Yeah,
all. I
obvious.
actually wanted, so that was a little bit tough. And then, it was tough for me to ask her, like, I was curious, like, do you feel bad a little bit? Like, yeah, this guy totally sucks. Everyone's ripping on him on the internet and beyond. But like, this was your partner of 9 years. No matter what anyone thinks of him, you did love him for whatever reasons. You loved him. And I said, did you feel bad? That she seemed to like take a beat. I was like, do you feel bad when you see all this stuff written about him? She actually said, yeah, I do a little bit. And then I'm quickly, brought back down to reality by remembering the deceit and the deception. But I mean, I imagine that has to be really hard. Like,
Yeah. I mean, she
even
was the ride or die. She keeps, like I was ride or die. And she also says, I trusted him. So I trusted my partner. And I
Mhm.
find it interesting when she gets pushback. It's like, okay, we give her pushback because she actually trusted her partner, which essentially is what we're all supposed to do in relationships. But we all are so jaded because of our past actual relationships that we now find that funny of like, how dare you trust your partner?
The other two things that I went into delicately was I really wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about her sort of mental health and her struggles with disordered eating, which she has been vocal about. I personally find it fascinating. She had said, I think last year or the year before, there were all these pickup. She said it in maybe a podcast, and it got all this pickup about how when she started the show, she was really struggling with an eating disorder, and she was, basically starving, and she was just so, so frail and so skinny. And she said now, I mean, she's still obviously like a very fit, small, privileged white woman. So but she did say, I was so skinny. And she was like hearing people now going back to season one, like, oh my God, she looks so amazing. She looks so much better. It just was like a gut punch, because that too is such a thing that women have to deal with. Like, no matter how much progress we think we've made in any area of being, a woman and accepting and body positivity, it really does seem like being skinny is the sort of very skinny is this badge of honor. And she was like, I was really struggling. And she's like, it really hurts when people say that. And she was like, I still watch it. And I'm like, wow, I looked good. And then she's like, I have to snap myself back to reality. And she mentioned that her new boyfriend, who is a trainer, is very obviously well versed in fitness. And she said that he's kind of helping her snap out of that, being like, not eating is not a thing. Like, you don't know, like, eat, you have to eat. Like, so it was that I felt like we had to talk, because she was really honest about that. And then also the thing that the garbage that Tom was spewing about how she threatened to
Oh,
kill
the
him.
T.
That actually is physically makes me sick. Like, he is weaponizing her struggles with mental health, but also she was like, it's not true. She was like, I didn't. And he keeps
Yeah.
saying,
You keep saying that. And then, I mean, just there's a textbook of all the things you shouldn't say. And it seems like Thomas said every one of those things,
no,
including last night when he said, oh, yeah, dude, she left her shirt on. It was real sexy. And I'm like, in what right mind would you ever, like, and that's, well, in a sense, I was thinking about the article and I was like, in a sense, Ariana's the perfect glamour cover story because it hits every issue that women have to deal with in a lot of ways. I mean,
Yeah.
like, the eating disorders, sexuality, cheating, like these are all actual issues that women face every day. And she is facing all of them. So in a sense that I'm like, it is then nice to see somebody thrive and also be honest about their struggles. You were talking about the weight thing. And I was like, even the reunion, she was telling Sheena of like, oh yeah, I lost 8 pounds because I haven't eaten in the last week and a half. And I think Sheena was like, oh my God, girl, nice, And it was like, we still fall into these little kind of habits. Even last night when she was talking about the 8 pounds, I remember thinking like, oh, I wish I could have a breakup, and a stupid, funny joke in my head. But I was like, that's not even funny. We just are so trained to do that.
We all do it. I am so guilty of this. I'm guilty of like making a joke about that. Like, you look amazing. I wish I could get a stomach flu like that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's not okay. Like, that's not cool. It's actually just so stupid. I also think the older I get and the more sort of like critical I think about stuff like this, I also think like it's immensely privileged for us. Like, we need to check our privilege at the door by saying that. Like, if you are somebody that, I'm not saying, we all struggle with our weight and our body image, but I think so many women that say that are just chasing. I don't know what we're chasing, what we want, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I'll bring it back to myself, but I always, rag on myself, and I'm like, oh, if I could be taller, if I could be skinnier, like, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. I'm privileged. I'm able-bodied. Like, I don't think we have bigger things to worry about. And so I think, in a way, Ariana was saying that. She was like, it kills me that, like, I'll watch that old season and I'll have those thoughts about myself, and then she'll snap herself back and be like, I wasn't well then. I'm in a better place now. So it's nice that she has that awareness.
It's interesting to have reality television too, to show you those things where in our own personal lives, your personal life, Perrie, you can't go back and go, in season 1 of Perrie's life, I noticed that I was being this way about myself. Like, we remember those things, but to have it visually there and then to have people comment on it in the same time is wild.
It must be crazy.
But it's the same thing a little bit in what you go through. Like, you write this article, it goes out to the world. It is live now. People can read it. People start commenting on it. There's going to be Reddit threads. In fact, I opened Twitter today, and and a person I like said, like, come on, why her on the cover? Are you kidding me? It's too far already. And I was like, I immediately got angry, and I was like, do I unfollow this person? And I'm like, well, you know what? It's not, like, people can have their thoughts, and I had to check myself from being reactionary, but I was like, what the fuck of course this is a cover story. And of course, like, why has it gone too far that she is on this is a perfect cover story. To me, it makes perfect sense. Do you get scared then of the reaction once you put something out into the world?
No, not really. I mean, nothing like this. In my career, I've never written anything that feels contentious in any way. Like, there's definitely some pieces that I've edited where I'm like, okay, we have to, Godspeed to the writer. Like, people are going to come for you. I've never, like, the stuff I've written, I've never had that feeling, but I do think it's funny with Glamour and with women's publications in general. You kind of can't win, right? You put a sort of campy reality, so-called lowbrow topic on the cover, and people are like, really? You guys are doing this? Oh, but then we'll put, like, a politician on the cover, and it's like, stick to television, stick to the stick. So we get that all the time. Like, we'll cover Glamour covers, in addition to entertainment and beauty and fashion and all that and sex, we cover, culture. And, if it's a large political story, we definitely covered, Roe v. Wade and very closely. And that's been an issue that Glamour has covered since the inception of the magazine. And
by the way, 1938 was when Glamour started, you guys. This is almost, they're nearing their 100th anniversary in like a decade or so, or like, I can't do math anymore, but 1938, this magazine has been around since. So that's wild. But
I will have to fact check that. But yes, it's
sorry. Yeah. It's a long time.
38 or 39. But yeah, it's been around for a really long time. And now, it exists only online. But going back, a couple of my colleagues worked on a book. It's like a Glamour coffee table book about our annual Women of the Year awards. And we honor sort of people that are breaking ground in different areas and celebrities that are making change. And while writing the book, they went back into the archives, and it's really amazing. Like, we have been covering issues just like the ones we see on Vanderpump, but also more cultural issues. So we've been covering infidelity and body image, but also, abortion rights and politics. And so it's like, you kind of can't win. I don't understand why people think that publications like ours just can't do it all. Of course we can. Women do. Like, I don't know why. So yeah, we get shit for putting Ariana on the cover, but then if we put, like I said, an activist or a politician, it'll be like, stick to reality TV. So it's like, all right.
Well, also the people complaining, I'm like, you didn't read the article. Because if you read the article, you know exactly why, this is like a kind of a differing piece. And like, I even found it fascinating to find out about, like, her time in Florida. And now, like, picturing her in high school by senior year, she was a member of like 10 different clubs. She was trying all of these things, but also that she was doing inner child work, and, she had realized that her dad was somebody that just never came home. And I thought there was, the
Okay.
obvious patterns with Sandoval as well. To me, this was just like, wow, this is more information that I wanted that fills out the picture of we talk, or Lala talks about this concept of the perfect victim.
Yep.
Because she was trying to bring up her battles and why maybe they weren't as publicized. And I think that's just such interesting topics. But to me, this article filled in a lot of those blanks. And I'm really curious to see where she goes from here.
Me too.
Who's up next on your agenda? Who are you interviewing next?
Who next? I personally don't have a subject for myself lined up. Who I'm trying to think who we have. That's huge. No one quite as in the conversation, I think, as Ariana right now, but I'm sure, we're always booking interesting people and floating it
How does
around.
your day-to-day go? Like, are you constantly going, what's in the news? What excites me? Personalizing it. How do you go about your job on a daily basis?
So yeah, basically we read the news and, we cover things like all publications. We'll cover sort of some trending news and we'll just do a little bit of news that, we'll cover breakouts from a different interview. But a lot of times we like to put our own POV on news. So I'll give you an example. One of our writers pitched an idea today that I thought was fantastic about the reunion last night, about sort of how his t-shirt, she can't sex with her t-shirt on, how that was sort of the last straw in his downfall. And like she framed it as like, men, she opened it up to a larger conversation, not just like dissing Sandoval, but like men like really brought it back to this body insecurity that women have. And it was just a great idea. So that was putting our own stamp on something that easily we just could have written that as straight news. But she was like, no, I want to like voice my opinion.
It opens up those conversations that are very real to women everywhere, but also in terms of even just the scandal economy of it. Like I had known that they knew that comment was coming out, and wisely, her and Katie and a couple of the people between something about her sandwich, they made a t-shirt. The t-shirt was ready to go, and they had sent it to me earlier in the day, and they said, okay, Kate, once this line airs on East Coast, Katie's going to post it. You need to repost it. And like, they really had this, like, let's take this misery and try to make something good out of it, to try to like get this going, get this up and running. And I thought, what a way to take something bad and make it potentially good for themselves.
To me, that's just the definition of success. It's like brushing your shoulder off, laughing at it, not even with it, like laughing at it, just being like, okay, and then turning it into money, turning it into profit, turning it into PR for your next venture, which is the sandwich shop. It's all very smart.
And if you come at it from like this good place, which I think Ariana does, and this profile shows, I want to support people like that. Like those are the people that I really do want to put my dollars behind. I have a couple more minutes with you. Thank you for going this long with us. But just as a fan, overall this season, did this season blow you away? Because the last two seasons of Vanderpump Rules have not been excellent. Were you sucked in like all of us were sucked in?
100%. Not only was I sucked in, I was very invested in the creepy vibes that watching the season play out for me truly was like watching like sort of a pulpy, like either like a B movie. I kept thinking of like Roger Corman or like a psychological thriller. In fact, so I'll tell you something funny. When I was writing the piece, I actually reached out to Quentin Tarantino's publicist, and I was like, is he a fan of Vanderpump Rules? Because I would love to know like how he would have written the rest of this. We never heard back, but like I was like, if this was his, somebody would like have an ear cut off. You know what I mean? I just wanted him to like fan. I wanted him to fan.
Could you? I'm not going to get that out of my head of Tarantino speaking about. Okay, see what you do here is right? Martin Scorsese, Lala says, is a fan of Vanderpump Rules. So I'm curious if he got into scandal this season.
Yeah, I wish I knew that because I would have reached out. I would have loved to have heard from a director who really is adept at sort of like body horror and psychological dread, and how they would have maybe written the rest, or just because that's how I felt watching. And I thought the team did a good job. Maybe this is why people thought it was fake, because they did a good job of sort of editing and re-editing in a way that actually had a little bit of a narrative, as opposed to some of the other seasons, which is just like, here's me at work, here's me at home, here's me partying. Like, this had a through line, and it was edited and scored and everything accordingly, and it felt cohesive.
So well done.
It felt creepy. I watched with my husband, and he too. We were just like, this is like the way Raquel and Tom, they were just creepy. And
but by the way, like, you support him at the beginning of the season in a way, and then once all this stuff starts breaking, you start watching it again, and even like the mustache looks creepy, the band looks creepy. Like, like it is interesting because we have this psychological shift in how we view it as an audience, and you're like, wait a sec, I used to think that mustache was cool, and now it looks like really skeevy to me, and like, oh my
really
God, what is? You can go back and watch
lessons, his like cheekbones, everything just like really. And that's also like probably not biased because I'm given the information, but like they led me to that, obviously, by the way they edited it. But like, yeah, like him and Raquel, they were definitely gave me some like horror thriller vibes.
What did you think about the season with DJ James Kennedy? He's at an interesting arc in the sense that, a lot of these people have done these horrific things, and DJ James Kennedy, for the audience, seems to be on an upswing, even though I want to remind people that he's done some really troubling things. And season 11, like, it's really, the goodwill he has built up, it's really his to lose at this point, depending on what he does. Was it interesting seeing some of these other characters dunk on Scandival when they've been involved in interesting things themselves?
100%. He was someone the whole season. I enjoyed watching him. I think he emerged covered in glory, more or less. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't forget as a fan a lot of the things that he said and did. And I mean, I feel like for quite a few seasons watching him, I was nervous for him. I feel like it wasn't just reality fun. I felt like I was watching a real breakdown, and I didn't know if it would end well for him. I just had that. And so it's just interesting how that's all swept under the rug, the way he treats women and his friends and his temper and his drinking and the comments about women's bodies a few seasons ago. And I think that it's kind of interesting, but I also understand that that's the nature of reality. Someone emerges as a villain. There can't be 10 villains. Like, someone emerges as the villain and someone else retreats. And, like, I think it kind of goes in waves. But
I think that's part of Sandoval's problem, is thinking of his life in terms of reality television now, and that's why he screwed up so badly, because he was like, it goes in waves, everything's going to be okay, Raquel's going to be a hero next season. Like, they really, their brains are mush, and they thought he was editing this in his head, and he thought he was going to come out on top because he really didn't count on Ariana finding out when she did. So the deck of, like, you even pointed that out in the article, the house of cards kind of completely fell down. And and then in terms of Katie, what did you think about her? I thought this would have been really, truly her season, in the sense because of Schwartz, but it didn't get hijacked by Scandival. But it is interesting that it took a little bit of a back seat.
I loved Katie this season. I will say, out of everyone, I mean, I'm grateful. Ariana was incredible, and I think I'm so happy to have met her and know her. But I also think Katie is somebody I would like to meet too, because I've actually always liked Katie. I know she gets a lot of hate, but I think I always thought she was extremely articulate. She always managed to communicate her thoughts, even when she was angry. She always got her point across, and I always just connected with her. And I thought she was phenomenal this season. I think she was grounded. I thought she really was self-possessed, and I don't know. I really liked her. I feel like we'd be friends. Not in a starstruck way, but I feel like in my life, that personality is someone I would gravitate toward. She just seems like very no bullshit.
And then Lala, what is your take on Lala? Because she's been interesting. Love Lala. Okay.
Love. I've always liked her. I actually interviewed her for a story, beauty story, right when she was releasing her book, and she was like so awesome, and it was just such a great we were talking about skincare and like self-care and wellness, and she was like amazing. I love her. I mean, I think a lot of the hate she's been getting online that I see is people think that she's trying to censor herself and be me, but I think maybe, but so what? And it comes from a well-meaning place. She's not really talking about herself. She's looking out for Ariana, and she's giving her own backstory because it's like some ways it's similar. Maybe she does know a little better. So I think people thought she was a little too vocal at the reunions. Her and James were like trying to be the center of attention. But number one, that seems to be their personalities. Don't watch if you don't like that. And number two, that's just, I mean, she's doing the right thing. She's standing up for Ariana and for women. And I like her. I think she's great. I think the show needs her. And she's also somebody that I would probably in my real life, if I came across her, I don't think a lot of people would want to be friends with her. I would. I think I love no bullshit people. That's just the kind of person I want to spend my time with. So I think she seemed awesome.
And you have three different types. You have all these different types of women on this show. So it's like you can't fit in all in the same box, which I think that's what people keep coming back now at this point for Vanderpump Rules is the strong female cast, because the male cast seems to be really the fulcrum of pain that this all like hinges on. So Perrie, thank you so much. I fully geeked out this hour. I also want to just compliment you on how you start this article. It's far better for a man to live on the roof with a contentious woman. You start it with a Bible passage, which I thought was a brilliant start. Did you always have that in your mind to start this article that way?
So I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm not a religious person. The reason I can give the backstory. So the whole lead is sort of like sort of talking about, you know, how things haven't changed. Even back then in the Old Testament, they're like, men would rather literally live on the roof than be with a woman that wants to talk. And it's not that I was familiar with the verse, but I was familiar. I did know in every Bible and every religion, there's a lot about vindictive women and angry women. And so I started Googling some phrases, and I was curious where it would lead. And I came across that one, and I was like, wow, that is perfect. Because I hadn't the point in my head. I just am not familiar with like passages of the Bible. But I was like, I know that is such, and I thought like maybe this is me overthinking, but I mean, this drama, this show, it's like biblical shit this year. Like,
I mean, it really is. It's Shakespearean. It's biblical. I would love in your studies of the Bible. There's a whole chapter on Raquel in the Bible. It's like amazing. It's crazy. Yeah,
for sure. Exactly.
Perrie Samotin, thank you so much for being with us today. Truly, thank you for so much time. You guys, this Glamour article, worth your time. Gonna link it, gonna put it in my Instagram stories as well. I hope I get to talk to you sometime down the line. Just amazing work you're doing. And thank you so much, Perrie.
Thank you, Ryan. My pleasure.